let's not waste any time. So we are resuming the regular city council meeting after a short break. The time is 7:56 p.m. Madam Clerk, my question is now, should we read, before we get involved in anything else, I'm sure we have general public comments. Should we get those out of the way since it's after 7:30? Okay.
Madam Chair, are we on?
We're on, yes.
Okay, so before you do that, I mean, can you give us some sort of update of where we are and what we've come up with before we just jump into public comments? I need to know how we're proceeding.
Mr. Evans.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I had an opportunity to convene with staff and look at the existing agenda that has been provided. The city clerk can report out what items are being postponed and in essence, what items are going to be shifted. The item concerning the special preservation will be the last item that we end up dealing with this evening. And for all intent and purposes, the resolution or the ordinances that have been advertised, those are the items that we're going to try to move through very quickly. Also, we have deployed additional staff to the clerk's office to facilitate the printing of the emails because we did get all that communications. It's still going to take some time for staff to print that. Madam Clerk, if you can report out the sequence of the agenda and what items are being removed and postponed and what items will we end up dealing with this evening.
Madam Chair, members of the board, item number 28, 29, 41, and 43 are all moved to the agenda for the next city council meeting.
Hang on. Hang on. 41.
Item number 28, 29,
41,
41, and 43.
Okay. Got it.
Are being moved to the agenda for the next city council meeting.
Okay.
Item number 31, which is ordinance number 4147, is being moved to the end of the agenda.
Okay.
All items that remain will be considered prior to considering item number 31.
Okay. So did we finish with item 30, the zoning on the
item number 30 was voted upon.
We voted on it. Okay, so we're done with that. Great. So we're up to item number 32. We'll do 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, and then 31. Correct?
36.
Or wait a minute. Items number 39 and 40 we have to do too.
Okay, 36, 37, 38. Not 38 was removed. 39, 40.
Right.
40. 42.
42. And then 31.
And then 31.
Okay, so now, I think that it's well past 7:30. We need to have public comments.
Madam Chair,
Madam Chair,
please pump your brakes a little bit because we haven't resolved the issues that caused us to have a recess.
Just as a reminder that based on the reordering of the agenda, you will need a motion to the effect of what the clerk just said.
That is correct.
All right, could someone please make a motion to accept?
Madam Chair. Okay, so can you please consider that obviously this stuff is happening on the fly, right? And we've had this discussion in the meeting where Manager Jonathan Evans was out. I specifically asked, under whose authority does the agenda get set? Because you guys set agendas and expect that regardless of whatever, the members are going to show up. I still have some other concerns, so don't ask for a motion until the members weigh in on what exactly is taking place. So obviously they caucused and came back with a reorganization. So what I'm trying to do is follow along on the agenda and see if I determine something that I have concerns about specifically. And one of the items was before we adopt the agenda, I want to make sure I understand. Is that okay?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. McCoy.
Okay,
Fine.
so one of the concerns I have, and I want to see if the manager is going to address this. So the item regarding the city council, I guess the budget initiatives, how do you plan on handling that? I believe that's item number 43.
Will.
Councilman, I plan on appropriating those monies in the fiscal year 2020, 2021 budget, and then bringing it back for the board to allocate the monies to the appropriate operation or
Well,
initiatives.
tell him I'm selling it now.
So
Could someone
I am going to appropriate the amount in totality that the board has put in there. I think it was 194,000. So I'm going to appropriate that or request that the board approve that amount, and then the board can determine how it wants to effectively handle that at a subsequent meeting.
Okay. Give me just 1 second. I'm trying to follow along and catch up because there was another item that was pulled that I jotted down from the clerk. I think it was item number. So item number 29, it is a resolution, Mr. Manager, but we've already gotten a presentation from Mr. Gagnon, I believe it was. And we've also heard this at our last city council meeting concerning the soil, because I've gotten at least one person that reached out to me today regarding this item. Because we've already had the presentation on that, does that need to be pulled already? I mean, that's pretty much a very simple motion that we've already seen this item 3 times at least.
It is a simple item, Councilman, but I know that there had been some concerns with regards to the environmental assessment, and that we wanted to have an opportunity for that assessment to be explained in further detail to the public. So that's, in the abundance of caution, that's why staff did pull that item. If the board does wish to discuss it, that item could be added back onto the agenda. But I know that there was some information that was circulated in the community, plus there was an environmental study that was done that we thought would take a little bit more time. So hence why we look to move it to the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. I understand that, and I respect your position on that. But members, let me remind you, against what I recommended, we insisted on hearing a presentation regarding the soil sample and the environmental study at the last city council meeting. And, you know, because I wasn't prepared, but obviously this was advertised. But I guess at this point, and I mean, this is theoretical in nature, or not theoretical, but rhetorical in nature, that, I mean, do we really need a presentation? So, I mean, I think I've seen it and heard it enough. So I wanted to make sure that we have at least resolved all concerns. If not, then we can certainly push it to another meeting. But, you know, we've had this item at least 3 times now. So, you know, that's why I was concerned what exactly more needs to take place, especially since we spent time last meeting discussing specifically that location. So, but, you know, that's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Does everybody understand where we are now with regard to the sequence? Okay, we need to make a motion to accept this new order of items. Would someone, I think, did we have a motion and a second to do that? I don't think we did. Someone please make a motion to accept this new order.
So moved.
Thank you. Someone please second. We can't proceed until we have a second on accepting this new order.
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson McCoy,
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier,
Yes.
Pro Tem Lawson,
Yes.
Chair Botel,
Yes.
unanimous vote.
So that brings us to item 32, am I right? Oh, no, we have to do
No,
public
Madam Chair,
comment. We have to do public comment.
And this would be our regular public comments, Madam Chair.
Yes, regular
Members
public
of the
comment.
board.
Do I
Madam
have to
Chair,
read-
please read the statement into the record. please.
I know, I'm finding it. Hang on. Hang on. There's too
I'm
many
almost
pages.
afraid to ask how many comments do we have? I mean, should we know? Or do you not think it's necessary? Madam Chair?
Claudia, Madam Clerk, how many public comments do we have?
We have 4 public comments for our regular public comments, Madam Chair, members of the board.
Thank you. Any member of the public wishing to comment publicly on any matter, including items on the agenda, shall submit their comments by email to City Clerk Claudine Anthony at publiccomments@rivierbeach.org. The email shall contain the applicable agenda item numbers along with the precise wording to be read into the record. Explicit language will not be read. Emails without applicable agenda item numbers will be read under the general public comment section. Be advised, public comments will be accepted for each applicable item and the general public comment section until closure is announced by the chairperson or the city clerk. All email addresses and submitted comments are and will be public record. The city clerk or designee will read public comments into the record at the appropriate time for no more than 3 minutes unless the time limit is reduced by a vote of the city council based on the voluminous nature of the number of public comments received. If you have any questions, please contact the city clerk's office at 561-845-4090 or email crobinson@rivierbeach.org.
Don't do this. Okay. Madam Chair, members of the board, our first public comment will come from Norm Adams. Email address nbasox@aol.com. To the Riviera Beach City Council, you were supposed to all be for integrity and transparency when elected to replace certain council members whose integrity was questioned, yet you disregarded the protocol of having an audit committee as recently mandated by the state. As a consequence, the audit for the year ending September 30th, 2019 hasn't yet commenced, and one of the firms that submitted a bid has filed a protest. In my opinion, as a CPA since 1967, with significant experience with audit committees, the protest has significant merit. You also never answered my question of whether the CPA firm to which you erroneously, in parentheses, awarded the audit has ever made a contribution to any of you or any of your campaigns. You owe the city residents an explanation. Norm Adams, Riviera Beach. P.S. This request supersedes an earlier request submitted to Ms. Claudine Robinson. Our next public comment comes from J.B. Dixon. Email address jbdixon@icloud.com. At each council meeting, and especially at those that deal with the Special Preservation District, we inevitably hear from Fane Lozman, one of the developers who wants to run the most pristine part of the Lake Worth Lagoon in Riviera Beach. Mr. Lozman enjoys his 3 minutes of fame during public comments and uses each minute to try to intimidate and insult the Riviera Beach City Council into doing his bidding. In person, he yells and shouts and flails his arms while calling our city employees inept and our council members corrupt, all without a shred of evidence, of course. Whether in person or virtually, he threatened to sue.
Could someone mute their mic, whoever's giggling there?
To sue the city, sue the council members, sue anything that doesn't move. And of course, he always insists that he will win because back in the day, he won twice. Wow. Well, true to form, Mr. Lozman filed a lawsuit against the 3 council members who voted yes on the Special Preservation District during its first reading. This lawsuit was intended to once again intimidate, threaten, and warn the council against voting in any way that he does not want you to vote. But guess what? That lawsuit has already been thrown out. His writ was denied. So much for him always being the winner he wants you to believe he is. More important, Mr. Lozman seems not to realize that he is dealing with a different Riviera Beach than he did back in the day when he won those cases. We are an all new city now. We have a new city council, a new city manager, new city attorneys, new outside legal counsel, new department heads. We are prepared to stick up for ourselves and our citizens and our environment. So his bully boy tactics should fall on deaf ears. They certainly fell on the court's deaf ears when he filed his latest ridiculous suit against our three council members. Madam Chair, members of the board, that concludes the 3 minutes for that public comment. Anyone desiring a complete copy of that public comment may contact the office of the city clerk. Our next public comment comes from email address sp500trda@yahoo.com. Councilperson Julia Botel's ethics violations are set for a hearing in October in Tallahassee before the State Ethics Board. Botel has engaged in multiple instances of criminal behavior to include, for example, using her city hall office to run a company out of, using city resources to prepare political attack flyers that demanded chief building official Lady March Goldwire, a Black woman, be fired, and threatening city staff that were not licensed by the state as chief building officials to rescind permits out of fear of losing their jobs. It is incomprehensible, given Botel's behavior, that she has not been removed as chairperson by the other council persons, especially with what transpired by Councilperson Shirley Lanier. Let's examine the facts surrounding Councilperson Shirley Lanier when she was a city employee, working as the administrative assistant for then Councilperson Lynn Hubbard. When Botel was running for office, she stated that Councilperson Hubbard was mentally retarded and was too dumb to be a councilperson. Botel further explained that Hubbard had zero leadership skills, and proof of that, according to Botel, was that Ms. Hubbard hired Ms. Shirley Lanier to be her administrative assistant. Botel told that Ms. Lanier was a, quote, cokehead, unquote, because Ms. Lanier tested positive for cocaine, and that the city manager properly fired Ms. Lanier over Ms. Hubbard's efforts to keep her. I had a discussion with Ms. Hubbard, who stated that it was indeed the city manager that directed that Ms. Lanier be fired for testing positive for cocaine, and that the city manager refused to give Ms. Lanier a second chance. Ms. Hubbard also stated that she prepared a written exit document when Ms. Lanier was fired, memorializing these events. Thus, why would Ms. Lanier support Botel, given her disgusting comments directed at her and Ms. Hubbard? Firing any employee without giving them a second chance to go through a drug rehabilitation program first is reprehensible. I have made it my mission to expose corrupt elected officials in South Florida and to get them removed from office. My track record of success has been highlighted in numerous newspaper stories. Botel is at the top of my latest corrupt politician list, and it is just a matter of time before federal prosecutors and the State Ethics Board agree with me and take appropriate action. The bottom line is that Botel conducts herself as a third world dictator, where she runs the city by intimidating everyone who does not jump at her every demand. Botel's disdain for city's Black elected officials and West Side residents was front and center when Botel was caught whining that the Singer Island beaches had not been reopened after her demands were ignored. Botel has repeatedly stated that Singer Island should become its own city because it has nothing in common with the West Side, and that Singer Island property taxes should not be used to support the Black residents on the West Side. There is no better time than the present to replace Botel as chairperson. Fane Lozeman. Madam Chair, members of the board, that concludes our public comments.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just got multiple text messages that the service, the live feed is going in and out. Could we just check with Walter to make sure the media is up and running? Because there's a lot of residents trying to watch the meeting tonight.
Mr. McCoy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, two things. You know, I want to really be serious for a second to think that, are we really going to try to take the last ordinance, 4147, in that, you know, I know it's been referenced, and I know Ms. Wynn may have some familiarity with the Sunshine Law when it relates to public comments, but it would seem that we need to have a meeting by itself to deal with Ordinance 4147, because there is no possible way that we're going to go through this tonight. And what I mean by that is, perhaps we need to think of a way that we initially allow for the receipt of public comments and have a meeting just to hear those comments, as opposed to trying to squeeze them in on the back end of this, and then bringing the item back up for final, what do you call it, final adoption at a separate meeting. Because I mean, realistically, we can't fool ourselves. I'm not going to be able to stay here to even attempt to go through that. However, with that in mind, if we take a vote right now, we would basically eliminate the possibility of having the discussion on items that, in my opinion, are routine in nature. But I just want the members to be considerate of that. And I thought the site plan would have been kind of routine. Not only that, there was a suggestion just made a second ago during public comments that we were sued. And I'm not sure I understand what that means. Were we sued, Ms. Nguyen?
Yes, Mr. McCoy, there were 3 of you that were sued, named individually in a writ quo warranto by Halo Development, Mr. Lozman, I believe Dan Taylor. I don't have it in front of me, so I don't have the style of the case. But yes, there was a lawsuit filed, I believe, last week or early last week, and we filed a response. The hearing was held on Monday, I believe, of this week, and the case was dismissed.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. I just wanted to fact check. I didn't know anything about it, but okay, I guess I can talk to you.
Right, you all were not served. Yes, so you.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. McCoy, I'm hoping that when the public comments are printed for that item regarding this special preservation area, that it will become clear that we do not, in fact, have hundreds and hundreds of public comments. Rather, we have hundreds and hundreds of signatures on a statement, and all we have to do is read the signatures, not separate public comments. I really don't think it's going to take that long to do it, and I really think that we need to address that issue tonight. So the sooner we move forward, the better, Mr. McCoy.
So, Madam Chair, and I'm saying this respectfully, you hoping doesn't give me any kind of, doesn't provide me any kind of solace or anything. I mean, your hope and what you know as being the chair from your discussions with the manager wasn't afforded to us. When we left this meeting, it was told that we had over 700 comments, or maybe was it 800 comments? So, I mean, as much as you know, I think it might be fruitful for us to know that as well before we take a action on an item to remove items where I had people literally with the expectation of their item being heard tonight. So, I mean, is there anything else that occurred during caucus that needs to be brought to the members' attention?
I did not have a meeting, Mr. McCoy. I did not have a conversation with Mr. Evans when we were separate. I just know, and I explained this prior to our cessation of the earlier part of the meeting, that it was my understanding that there were signatures, not full public comments. That is being addressed now by the clerk. The clerk's office is printing out all of those, and once they get them printed out, they will see that over 800 of them only have to have the names read and don't have to have public comments read. Ms. Miller-Anderson.
But that's not answering my question. And before you go to her, I guess, Madam Chair and Mr. Manager and Mrs. Clerk, this is Trodrick McCoy, and I simply want to know how many public comments have we received? And what we consider public comments is emails that have been sent in relative to an agenda item, and not what's contained in the petition, not the number of signatures. I want to know, for time purposes, how many comments do we have? And before we vote, I think that needs to be resolved. And I'm going to leave it alone after that.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we have over 700 emails. Over 700 actual emails pertaining to this item.
Madam Clerk, the 700 emails, do they say, I support this petition, I agree to have my name read for this petition, or are they separate and distinct with different verbiage in the body?
Madam Chair, members of the board, the Office of the City Clerk has not had the opportunity to go through all 700 emails, 700 plus emails, to determine the exact verbiage. The ones that I did get the opportunity to see, they did say that I agreed to have my name added to the petition. Okay, but the thing of it is that is still considered a public comment.
Yes, but all you have to do is read the name in that case, right?
email will have to be read because it is a public comment in its entirety.
No,
Madam
I'm
Chair,
sorry,
members of the
Madam Chair.
board,
This
I
was,
was,
this was agreed to by the city attorney, the people who crafted the petition, established this procedure. It was agreed to by the city attorney, and not every one of those emails has to be read, only the names.
Ms.
Yes.
Nguyen,
Madam Chair, for all intents and purposes, the attorney may have opined, but truthfully, if it's an email public comment, it has to be read. You can't water down or reduce the public comment. I mean, that is fundamental. And quite honestly, all I'm trying to get at is how many comments do we have? How many emails that have to be read? Even if they're all duplicate, I mean, I guess if the substantive portion is all the same thing being repeated over and over, I think you still have to read it, Madam Chair. I mean, I don't think you can avoid that. And that's all I was just trying to establish. I mean, I understand when you wanted to consolidate and, be most efficient with the time, but I don't think that's going to work.
Ms. Nguyen, could you speak to that topic?
Yeah, I think the problem herein is that we had an established procedure that we were going to abide by. This petition was going to be sent and that petition was going to be read. What happened was the person that sent the petition in also sent the emails. Therefore, that created a public record. However, just if the clerk reads, I agree to have my name added to the petition, even if she has to read it 700 times, that's going to take 5 seconds.
Okay, but does she have to read that 700 times, or can she not just read the petition and say the names? That was the procedure that was agreed to.
The problem is that we don't know that those emails and the names on the petition are the same because they have not been cross-referenced.
Well, there's no way that we can dispose of this by going through all of those emails, Madam Chair. This is impractical. For every receipt of an email, it has to be completed in full. And, I don't even think I have to explain to you the risk of us not considering a public comment. And realistically, do we really want to start that tonight?
Do you want to take a vote on it? You can take a vote on it. I am in favor of having this ordinance read and voted on tonight because it is so critically important to almost 1,000 people who signed a petition. At this point, we have at least 800.
Madam Chair, can you figure the math of us even starting to do that?
Yeah, if it's only the names that have to be read, it would take less than 15 minutes to read all those names.
But truthfully, Madam Chair, we don't know that. And that's literally what I've been trying to arrive at. And I know it seems quite harsh, but I mean, it seems like we're kind of going in circles a little bit. But, I yield the floor. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Shall we proceed with the voting on the agenda? I think that's where we are right now. Am I correct, Madam Clerk? No, you're saying no.
Madam Chair, members of the board, you all have already approved the reordering of the agenda as I read into the record.
It's been a long night. So what's the next item then?
So we voted on that?
Yes.
The reorder?
Yes.
Yes, we did, Mr. McCoy, Madam Chair, members of the board, we did. Our next number would be number 32.
So before we get to that, because I'm gonna be honest, and in all fairness to every member and also the members of the public, I mean, I can't stay around here for all night. So if I have to leave the meeting, I want to understand, Ms. Nguyen, what has to happen. I mean, obviously, let's not just start going down this road until we know what happens, because I know that there was some changes in the state law regarding the quorum. But I know it's frustrating as it seems, members. Realistically, are we really going to fool ourselves in believing that we're going to sit here through all these items and then hear 700 comments? I'm not going to be able to stay around. So what happens to the meeting after if you no longer have a quorum? What should we expect, Ms. Nguyen? Because members, and indulge me, because I did bring this up at the last meeting as to who decides when this goes on to the next reading. So, we're here now, so we can't ignore it. So, Ms. Nguyen, what happens?
If we lose the quorum, we can't continue with the meeting.
But wasn't the
And so-
governor's executive order suspending the quorum?
No, he did not suspend the
No.
quorum. He suspended in-person meetings.
So,
You still have to have a quorum.
okay. All right, good enough. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can we proceed? Madam Clerk? Madam Clerk,
Yes, Madam Chair.
item number 32.
Ordinance number 4149, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, amending City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 31, zoning, Article 1, and general, Section 31-1, definitions by adding a definition for drive-up, drive-through facility, a definition for restaurant excluding drive-through, and a definition for restaurant, drive-through, drive-in, and amending Chapter 31, zoning, Article 6, supplemental district regulations, Section 31-551, principal arterial design standards overlay by amending the location criteria for developments with drive-up facilities by deleting the existing 500-foot separation requirement and requiring special exception, approval for drive-up facilities, and providing for conflicts, severability, codification, and providing for an effective date. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do not have any public comments on this item. The acceptance of public comments on this item is now closed.
Would someone care to make a motion?
So moved.
Would someone second?
Second.
Second.
Any discussion or presentation?
Madam Chair, there has been no modification since first reading. Staff recommends approval on second and final reading.
Okay, any questions by the board? Or council? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier,
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy,
Yes.
Pro Tem Lawson,
Yes.
Chair Botel.
Yes.
Unanimous vote. Ordinance number 4150, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, fixing the adjusted tax valuation of real property located within the corporate limits of the city, levying a tax on real property and tangible business personal property located within the corporate limits of the city for the fiscal year beginning on October 1st, 2020 and ending on September 30th, 2021, fixing the millage rate of 8.4520 mils thereon for said year, that the millage rate of 8.4520 is 6.22% higher than the rollback rate of 7.9567, providing a severability and providing an effective date. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do not have public comments on this item. The acceptance of public comments on this item is now closed.
Thank you. Would someone care to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Evans, is this the same case that there's nothing new?
Yep, Madam Chair, this item is second and final reading. There has been no modification since first reading. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Mr. McCoy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Manager, so I've not seen any update regarding, I asked for organizational chart of the police department, and also we haven't been provided with a full and complete budget and breakdown of the budget position-wise from Parks and Recreation. I thought we were going to see that in the backup or prior to this reading.
This particular item deals exclusively with the millage rate as it relates to the budget document. As we finalize the budget document, there's probably about 12 to 13 weeks left of work as we compile the document. But based on the direction that was provided to staff, there will be 3 divisions as articulated in the discussions with the board. And then the corresponding organizational charts will all be furnished in the budget document. But the only FTEs that have been modified are the ones that are incorporated in the agenda items. And then also any modifications as it relates to personnel would have to come back to the board by virtue of a resolution.
Thank you.
Anything else? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier,
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy,
No.
Pro Tem Lawson,
Yes.
Chair Botel.
Yes.
That motion is approved with Councilperson McCoy dissenting.
Thank you. Number 34.
Ordinance number 4151, an ordinance of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, making appropriations and establishing a budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2020, and ending on September 30th, 2021, providing a severability clause and providing for an effective date. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do not have public comments on this item. The acceptance of public comments on this item is now closed.
Thank you. Would someone care to make a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair, this is second and final reading of the ordinance that's before you this evening. There has been no modifications to the item since first reading, and staff recommends approval on second and final reading.
Thank you. Mr. McCoy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. More or less a comment. I want to restate my position that we've not been provided with sufficient backup to support approval of this budget. And for record purposes, I don't support a budget that raises the taxes for property owners and also calls for positions to be cut from the budget. So for that reason, I'm not supporting the budget.
Anything else? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lanier,
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy,
No.
Councilperson Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Pro Tem Lawson,
Yes.
Chair Botel.
Yes.
That motion is approved with Councilperson McCoy dissenting.
35.
Ordinance number 4152, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, modifying and updating the city's 5-year capital projects plan from fiscal years 2020, 2021 through 2024, 2025, providing for a severability clause and providing for an effective date. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do not have public comments on this item. The acceptance of public comments on this item is now closed.
Thank you. Would someone care to make a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comments or questions?
Madam Chair, this item is to seek City Council approval of Resolution 4152. There has been no modifications to this item. Staff, since first reading, staff is recommending approval at second and final reading.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson McCoy,
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier,
Yes.
Pro Tem Lawson,
Yes.
Chair Botel.
Yes.
Vote.
Item 36. This is an ordinance on first reading.
Ordinance number 4153, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, to be entitled Riviera Beach Civil Rights Ordinance, providing for non-discrimination in the city and all other activities promoted or sponsored by the City of Riviera Beach, providing for codification, providing for conflict, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do not have public comments on this item. The acceptance of public comments on this item is now closed.
Thank you.
Move
Would
to
someone care to make? I'm sorry?
I said
Would someone
move to
care-
postpone.
Mr. McCoy is moving to postpone. Do we have a second? Do we have a second to postpone? I will pass the gavel to Mr. Lawson in second.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do we have discussion?
Well, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. So obviously, this obviously is not one of the times sensitive items, and I would much rather that we take the important statutorily required items first and deal with the other ordinances that we have had outstanding for ordinances and resolutions that we had outstanding. So I would ask that we postpone it to a later meeting next month, at least next month.
Any other discussion? Okay, well, I'm actually going to comment that I don't believe this ordinance is going to take up a sufficient amount of time. Mr. Evans, do we have a presentation for this ordinance? Or, I'm sorry, Ms. Nguyen.
It's less than 1 minute, Mr. Lawson.
Okay, and I believe my colleagues may have questions about it, so I know that it's Councilman McCoy is concerned, but I would be in support of having this read on first reading and moving forward with it. So if we have no other comments from my colleagues, anyone else?
Well,
Councilman McCoy.
So, Mr. Chair, you've more or less sponsored the presentation of this item to the members of the body, correct?
Yes, Councilman McCoy.
So, I certainly think it's something that we need to closely examine. But has there been any consideration of other rights aside from those that have been included in the proposed ordinances? Because the Civil Rights Act was pretty extensive, and I don't see that this actually went the full length to encompass all of those. So I don't want to see us take on something that's half-baked. If we're trying to restate some of the provisions that were provided in the Civil Rights Act, then I think we should do it that we encompass everything as opposed to just those specific to this item.
Ms. Nguyen?
Yes, Mr. McCoy, perhaps if you could identify what those are, we can still include it and for the advertisement for the public hearing in about 2 weeks at our next meeting.
Okay, and that's exactly why I want to postpone. So can we do that, Ms. Nguyen? Because, I had some questions about it too. And, I don't want to belabor why I didn't have them already asked. Obviously, we know that there's some challenges with the meeting agendas being published in late editions, but I just would much rather we deal with the things that we have to, that's time certain right now, and then we can take this up at a later point.
I understand, whatever's the pleasure of the council.
Thank you. Councilwoman Botel?
I agree that
Councilman.
this is something that we can take up once we have resolved any questions that we have. I support this concept completely. In fact, I provided Ms. Nguyen with this ordinance some time ago as well, and I support it completely, but I think it's not something that we have to do this evening. I'd rather move on to things that we have to do this evening.
Councilwoman Lanier?
I thought we had a motion and a second on the floor.
We do. Are you calling the question, Councilwoman Lanier?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lanier,
What am I voting on?
A motion to
motion
postpone.
to postpone to at least next month.
No.
Councilperson McCoy,
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson,
No.
Councilperson Botel,
Yes.
Chair Lawson.
No.
That motion fails with Councilpersons Lawson, Miller Anderson, and Lanier dissenting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilman McCoy, if we could have some discussion in reference to some of the items that you see that are missing from this item, so that we can actually have that addressed with Ms. Nguyen, so it can be publicized and we can, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ms. Anthony.
Madam, who has the gavel?
You can pass it back
I
to
do,
them.
Ms. Ms.
Okay.
Anthony.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, to discuss the item, we need to get a motion on the floor.
We need to
What is
pass
the
the
motion?
gavel back to Dr. Botel since that first motion failed.
Thank you.
Thank
Please,
you.
Mr. Lawson.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Nguyen.
you. Could we have a motion to accept this ordinance number, I forget which one it was, this ordinance about the civil rights? Anyone care to make a
So
motion?
So
So
moved.
moved.
We have a
Second.
motion and a second. Now can we have discussion? or a presentation, whichever is more appropriate. Mr. McCoy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to really quick say, I just hope those that didn't support us postponing are going to be open for a friendly amendments to this ordinance so that we encompass the full measures of the Civil Rights Act. Obviously, to be discussed at a later date, but I will be offering some other amendments to it. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yes, I just wanted to, state why I was not in favor of it, is because we sat here for quite a while, rearranging agenda and pulling things off. And so I just thought that, we need to agree with what we agreed with earlier, but I certainly understand you need to do the amendments.
But you want to vote on accepting it as is, just to be clear. Are you saying that you'd like to wait and have some amendments proposed by Mr. McCoy, or are you saying that you would like to vote on it as is? Ms. Miller Anderson.
I'm just commenting as to why. I just made a comment. Whatever the vote was is what the vote is.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I may, the ordinance is not adopted to second and final reading, so changes can be made all the way up until second and final reading. So this is more so procedurally, but it will be adopted at your next meeting. So there is an opportunity for Councilman McCoy to provide some comments.
Thank you. Any other comments by council? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy,
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier,
Yes.
Pro Tem Lawson,
Yes.
Chair Botel,
Yes.
unanimous vote.
37, are we up to 37?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board.
Go ahead.
Resolution number 7620, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Florida, approving the legal services agreement with attorney Corey Smith to serve as special magistrate for code compliance hearings, unsafe building hearings, and for other city hearings, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute the legal services agreement for the same, providing for severability and providing for an effective date. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do not have public comments on this item. The acceptance of public comments on this item is now closed.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any presentation or comments? Mr. Evans or Ms. Nguyen?
Briefly, Madam Chair, this is a 2-year agreement for legal services agreement with attorney Corey Smith to serve as the city's special magistrate, as the clerk has stated, for code compliance hearings, unsafe building hearings, and other city hearings. It's a term of 2 years with a 2-year renewal. Mr. Smith, Attorney Smith has been our special magistrate since 2014.
Thank you. Any comments by council? Mr. McCoy?
Madam Chair, thank you. Ms. Nguyen, so we no longer have the agreement that we entered into with Ms. St. Just?
We have both, Mr. McCoy. We may have the opportunity for zoning hearings, and Ms. St. Just has expertise in that or experience. And also, as we discussed at a workshop that we all had maybe back in October or December, we'll be amending our code compliance ordinance, which may result in additional cases, as well as our nuisance abatement and chronic nuisance ordinances. So we have a need for 2 special magistrates.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy,
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier,
Yes.
Pro Tem Lawson,
Yes.
Chair Botel,
Yes.
unanimous vote.
Are we at 39 now?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board. Resolution number 7820, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, authorizing the city manager to execute a renewal agreement with Aetna Healthcare of Florida to provide health insurance to eligible employees, dependents, and retirees, and authorizing the director of finance and administrative services to make payments from various departmental accounts up to the amount equal to $1,035.64 per month for each employee for fiscal year 2020 to 2021 and provide an effective date. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do not have public comments. The acceptance of public comments on this item is now closed.
Thank you. Would someone please make a motion to accept?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Do we have a presentation, Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Ms. Young and Mr. Gu to make a brief presentation.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of council. This is Yuri Young, Interim HR Director for the City of Riviera Beach. I have with me Benefits Administrator, Mr. Stephen Gould, to provide a presentation on this item.
Good evening, Council Chair. Basically, we're just looking for your approval so we can go ahead and all of the backups are, I apologize about that, are attached. We went over the workshop August 27th and August 29th, and we're just here to get your approval. And if you have any questions, I'm available.
Mr.
Yes,
McCoy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Gould, thank you for your explanation. I appreciate that, but I am going to not support this resolution in effect that increases the health insurance costs. And particularly the verbiage really is concerning because there's a provision, a whereas provision that says the city council has determined that it's in the best interest of the city and its employees to execute the renewal application with Aetna Healthcare of Florida with the plan modifications as outlined in the analysis. And that's something that I can't support, partly because, and I'm going to restate this and probably not going to like it, and that's fine with me, but I don't support a health cost increase for our employees when we had top administration taking pandemic pay that wasn't even approved by city council. And the very first action that we take up in the budget workshop is how we increase these employee plans, increase the cost on the employee plans. So for that reason, I'm not going to be able to support a budget that raises healthcare costs on our employees during a time of pandemic when upper management took pandemic pay, which was not approved.
Any other comments? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lanier?
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy?
No.
Councilperson Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Pro Tem Lawson?
Yes.
Chair Botel?
Yes.
That motion is approved with Councilperson McCoy dissenting.
Number 40.
Resolution number 7920, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, requesting approval to execute a 5-year lease agreement, Interstate Industrial Park Holdings LLC, for the Police Department Evidence Warehouse located at 6557 Garden Road, Units 11, 12, and 13, Riviera Beach, Florida, for the period of September 1st, 2020 through August 31st, 2025, approving monthly rent of $7,082.25 per month with an annual 4% increase for a total of $459,235 from account number 101-201-05-544000 and provide an effective date. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do have a public comment on this item. The acceptance of public comment on this item is now closed.
Thank you. Would someone care to make a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Would someone second? Would someone care to second?
Second.
Thank you. Do we have a presentation and then we'll do the public comment?
Yes, Madam Chair, just a brief presentation. This item is seeking authorization to enter into a lease agreement for property that the city of Riviera Beach leases to store evidence for units 11, 12, and 13 for a term of 5 years in an amount not to exceed $459,000 at an annual increase of 4%. There was a Scribner's error that we articulated. The reason for these facilities that the city of Riviera Beach utilizes is for evidence storage. It is a requirement for us to be able to store these items until cases are closed. And currently we do not have an on-site facility that can accommodate this. This has been a long-standing relationship that the city of Riviera Beach has, and staff recommends approval of the resolution that's before you this evening. And Chief Osgood is here to provide any insight or perspective should the board desire.
Thanks. Let's hear the Chief Osgood. Did you want to say anything, or can we go right to questions from the council?
Good evening, Madam Chair and Council Member. Basically, the city manager covered everything I was going to cover, so we can go right to the council.
Thank you. Let's hear public comment, Ms. Anthony.
Public comment from Mary Beth Coffer, email address marybeth.coffer@gmail.com. Mary Beth Coffer, 2640 Lakeshore Drive. I appreciate the need for the Riviera Beach Police Department to have leased space for evidence storage. However, I do not understand why the lease was allowed to expire. This tells me that this contract has likely not been monitored so that it could be brought forward with enough advance to do a thorough review. In addition, there is no documentation that I can see that demonstrates to me that any financial market analysis of lease rates has been accomplished. What is the best practice analysis and procurement process for a lease like this? This is real taxpayer money, not funny money, and should be obligated in the most cost-effective manner. If an analysis was done, please make it available, include the backup with other packages in the future. Mary Beth Coffer. Madam Chair, members of the board, that concludes public comments on this item.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from council?
Madam Chair, really briefly with regards to the public comment, staff did take a look at the feasibility of relocating the items that are contained, but remember that these are some unsolved crimes, and that there would be a potentiality of destroying or damaging or losing evidence. So unfortunately, we are in a situation where retaining the space is critical until these items are closed through the court proceeding process.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Ms. Lanier.
What happened to the modular option for the police department?
That would be to accommodate the facilities for law enforcement offices, et cetera, until we did move into a situation where we can build a station and have a site that can accommodate that. But it is very common for law enforcement agencies to have those types of sites off their normal campus, because there is, in any particular situation, you can have 20 or 30 or 40 vehicles that would be occupying space. So the modular option is to accommodate the staff and the law enforcement arm of the agency, but those items that are contained for the purposes of court proceedings are usually and routinely kept on off-site areas, because they have to be secured in a certain way to ensure that there is no access to those facilities, and if there is access, that it is documented, because that can cause for cross-contamination or destruction of evidence or tampering of evidence, and that's something that obviously we do not want to put ourselves in that situation.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I'm not finished.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Was it elevated as the cost? You just place it at other sites.
The challenge is, if we look to remove or move the items, there is a potential of the items that have been stored for the purposes of court proceedings and the holding of evidence, that items could be damaged. In addition to, you're looking at spending tens of thousands of dollars to relocate the items with no assurity that information or there's cross contamination. So we did look at other locations. We did look at the cost of moving an item, and we have had that particular storage units, two of them, for a significant amount of time, and we had to, because of the nature of some of the things that have been occurring, we've had to expand to another bay to accommodate the items, and the court makes the local jurisdictions incur the cost until it goes to court. So some items could be in there for 6 months, some could be in there for 6 years. Chief Osgood, is there any other?
So what happened? Why did the lease expire?
We're at the end of our lease agreement. So what we're doing now is renewing it for the next 5 years.
But 5 years though. I mean, if we're looking to do a modular for the police department, and to phase in, why are we doing 5 years with this?
Well, you have an option. There's two options. One is 3 years, and the second one is 5 years. Even if you did a modular for the police department, you're talking about, again, as the manager said, you're talking about personnel, staff. We need basically, if we're going to build a warehouse, I understand we need a warehouse storage facility to put this evidence in. This is evidence. You're talking about 50 vehicles, and that's dealing with homicides and traffic fatalities that by law we have to properly maintain until there's a court order to dismiss them or going to trial, and either or. So we have to properly maintain. This is not unusual for any police department, not just throughout the county, throughout the entire nation. It's not unusual to have a storage facility to maintain your physical property evidence. Now, as far as the lease agreement expiring, we're just at the end of the lease agreement. We first took this lease agreement in 2012. We renewed it in the city in 2017, and we're looking to renew it again. Now, if we renew this lease agreement for 3 years, it's a little bit more, well, it'll be a lot more to renew this for 3-year term than the 5-year term. That's why we went for the 5-year term.
So is this a specialized facility or just a regular facility?
It's a storage. We got the proper security cameras, codes, alarm codes, fortified building. So it's a
Security
storage.
I think that's going into security exemption, Chief and
Yeah.
Mr. Manager.
Yes.
You got to go offline with that.
Yes.
Madam Chair, if I may, with regards to the for the purpose and the integrity of the system, you will never find law enforcement entities that have their evidence storage on the same site that they have their police station, because of just the potential that an officer involved in the case could access that facility. So they are usually totally two remote sites that have very restricted access to ensure the integrity of the evidence and the information, because that would definitely add some challenging to the court proceedings. So that it is in every law enforcement jurisdiction that I've ever been involved with or managed, it is two completely different sites, and in some cases not even disclose where those sites are.
I would say that, I understand all of that, but we should just build a separate modular. I thought that was where we were headed with all of our facilities in terms of the police department. So why are we doing a whole 5-year lease when we're moving towards modular? Why don't we just go with the modular now?
We couldn't be able to construct the facility in enough time to be able to accommodate that. Plus, the concern that we do have is removing the evidence, because there is still court proceedings that need to resolve themselves. So even if we were to build an off-site location, there still would be time. There would probably new cases would go into that facility until the existing cases have been closed out. Because again, if we relocate the items, the defense will say that there's a potential for cross-contamination. How do we know that it was secured properly? Who was involved in the move? How was that selected? It would jeopardize the integrity of the law enforcement work that's been done. So in the future, yes, there's a possibility of constructing a site off-site, but you routinely would not put that on the same campus that you do have your police department.
No, and I do understand that. It's just that we had this whole conversation of moving to modular. If it's not a specialized facility, and we're looking at, I mean, what happens if, you know, a hurricane comes in, you know, blows off half of it? We're gonna have to move anyway. So, I mean, I understand the position of, you know, trying to kind of keep it where it is, but if that's the case, 5 years is a long-term lease if we're looking at moving into modular units. I mean, we had 3 years before. Why not 3 years now? That's
Thank you. Mr. McCoy.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So, Councilwoman Lanier, respectfully,
Wait,
I think
I'm not finished.
I'm sorry. I thought you said you're finished.
I'm
I'm
not
sorry.
finished. Basically I was saying was that if we go to a 3-year lease, we can phase into a modular unit, which is what we were looking at for the police department. But a 5-year lease, and then 2, to wait until the very end of the lease to even talk about this is a whole nother ball game here. So if we were going to move forward with this, I would want a 3-year lease so that we can look at permanent facility or a permanent modular for this particular entity. And side note, in 1982, I worked for the evidence custodian department for the city of Riviera Beach, and it was all in one spot, right inside Lieutenant Beckmeyer's office. And I know that things have changed from 30 years ago, but I also understand that we had decided as a council that we would be moving towards this modular units, and to do a 5-year lease on an existing property, I can't agree to.
Is that it, Ms. Lanier?
Yes, that's it for me.
Thank you. Mr. McCoy?
no, Madam Chair, I'm good.
Anything else? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson McCoy,
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier,
No.
Pro Tem Lawson,
He said yes.
Chair Botel.
Yes.
Yes.
That motion is approved with, I've lost my count here.
Lanier.
Lanier dissenting.
Item number 42. We're getting there. Item number 42. Getting down to the wire here.
Resolution number 8220, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, declaring Environmental Systems Research Institute Incorporated to be a sole source provider, approving the award of a 3-year enterprise agreement renewal to ESRI for ESRI Geographic Information System products and services for a total contract amount not to exceed $230,100 to be paid in 3 annual payments of $76,700 from fund account 501-1901-534000 and provide an effective date. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do not have any public comments on this item. The acceptance of public comments on this item is now closed.
Thank you. Would
So
someone
moved.
here to make?
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions, or is there a presentation, Mr. Parziale? Mr. McCoy has questions.
I'm gonna go ahead and make it really quick for Mr. Parziale. I know he's about to leave, not just from the meeting, but Mr. Parziale, under what research and background information do we have a resolution before us that declares ESI to be the sole source provider for these GIS related services? Because I don't see let me tell you why I asked. I don't see a previous contract. It's referenced that this is a renewal, and there's not been any kind of procurement or public purchasing information provided.
There was another contract 3 years ago when this was initially signed, and it's under ESRI's Small Municipal and County Government Enterprise Agreement. They are pretty much the leaders and sole source in terms of geographic information systems used certainly throughout the county, Palm Beach County, all the cities and municipalities here in Palm Beach County, the state of Florida, the Florida Department of Health. If you go there and look at their dashboard, it'll say on the bottom, powered by ESRI. So it's the ability to add data to the layers and use it for land planning and development.
Mr. McCoy.
Can you follow up? So that Department of Health website that's been very much criticized in the media about having faulty information, that website, is that the one you're talking about?
It's the people that put the information in the website.
It's user error.
I knew you was going to say that.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Hey, I'm busting Mr. Parzielli's chops before he gets out of here, but you said two things that conflict. They're pretty much the sole source, and then you also said that there was nobody else. So, I mean, like, which is it? Is this the only game in town?
They're the only game in town, and that's...
Okay.
And if we were to look at another provider, the layers and the maps on the county system won't mesh with ours, so it would be obsolete if we were to get another vendor.
Okay. Any other questions?
So there is another vendor.
No, there's no one.
That I'm aware of.
They've acquired. I think they've acquired the other games in town. But even if you were to find a 14-year-old in the basement that can create something, you're pretty much stuck.
Any other questions?
I'm bowing down, Mr. Parzielli.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy.
Ms. Lanier.
So that means that the sole source means that they're the only person. We're talking about a single source, not a sole source.
I don't know of any other providers of GIS data, of GIS systems. I mean, there are a lot of companies that use the feeds that come from ESRI's data sources, but I'm not aware of any others.
So since you're not aware, that means it could be a single source. It could be somebody out there who does do it.
It could be.
Anything else? Madam Clerk. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson? Lanier?
Yes.
Pro Tem Lawson?
Yes.
Chair Botel?
Yes.
That motion is approved with Councilperson Miller Anderson out.
And now are we back to 31? Last but not least?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board. I need to check on the status of getting the 700 plus emails printed.
So,
Madam Chair, if you can read the ordinance title and maybe even staff move with the presentation.
Yeah, you go ahead, Ms. Anthony, I'll read it. Ordinance number 4147, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, amending Chapter 31 of the city's Code of Ordinances entitled Zoning, Article 5, District Regulations by creating a new zoning district entitled SP Special Preservation District, coinciding with the city's comprehensive plan, future land use element for special preservation areas, and amending Chapter 31, Article 5, Division 1, generally, Section 3196, designation of districts by adding reference to the SP Special Preservation District, and amending Chapter 31, Article 5, Division 1, generally, Section 3197, official zoning map and zoning district boundaries by amending the city's zoning map by assigning a special preservation zoning district designation to any and all land area currently having a special preservation future land use designation according to the city's comprehensive plan and future land use map in order to provide consistency between the city's future land use map and zoning map, which will impact real property or portions thereof located north of Pine Point Road and west of North Ocean Drive in the city of Riviera Beach, providing for severability and conflicts, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date. And I know we have public comments. Thank you. Did you move to Mr. McCoy?
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Now, do we have a presentation by Mr. Sermons? We've really already had a presentation, but Mr. Evans.
Yes, Madam Chair, we have a brief presentation and what is required for this ordinance to pass as well. At this point, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Development Services Director, Mr. Clarence Sermon.
Good evening again, Madam Chair and members of the council. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. All right, and I will try not to labor too long on the items that we've discussed already and just stick to any updates from previous discussions on this item. This is the ordinance that was just read into your hearing. Again, the city's comprehensive plan guides development activities in the city. The state requires that the comprehensive plan be the primary guiding document for land development decisions in the city. It also requires that any other regulations guiding land development for that city be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Currently, there is a compatibility issue here.
Mr. Sermons, Ms. Miller Anderson has her hand raised.
Are we able to move that off of the PowerPoint screen, the squares?
Oh, you can see that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Better?
Yes.
All right. Currently, there is.
Real quick, I apologize, Mr. Sermons. Madam Chair, did we stop the acceptance of public comments for this item?
Madam Clerk, could you stop the acceptance of public comments?
You can close it, Madam Chair. You can go ahead and declare it's closed.
All right, public comments are no longer being accepted. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Go ahead, Mr. Sermons.
All right. As you all know, currently there is a compatibility issue here in Riviera Beach. The area designated as special preservation district on our long-range comprehensive plan does not match with the zoning map, which designates that area as R5 residential, which was the previous designation before it was changed in the late 90s. So the ordinance before you will accomplish three things. It will create the language for the new special preservation zoning district in the comp plan. It will amend the zoning map of the city to show that same area as special preservation future land use area. So they will then match up after this ordinance. And then it will also sunset the current special preservation and submerged lands moratorium, which is currently in operation. So if this item is passed and adopted, the staff will update the zoning map to be consistent and make those aforementioned changes to the comprehensive plan. The city's planning and zoning board unanimously recommended approval of this ordinance on May 28th of this year. The ordinance was approved on first reading on July 8th of this year. On August 21st, a special preservation workshop was held, and at that workshop, additional information was presented related to the existence of sensitive environments, wetlands, and other environmental areas that the city has identified that it wants to protect in the comprehensive plan. So the presence of those attributes were confirmed through the study that the city had commissioned, as well as additional information that was presented at the workshop. And city staff does recommend approval of this ordinance.
Thank you. Any questions or comments before we go to public comment?
A couple more.
But you're done.
There's one additional item that has been brought to light since the first reading, and that is section 31-5 of city ordinance that requires that at least 3/4 vote be had to approve this item tonight because there has been a protest of at least 20% of the landowners of the subject parcels. So tonight we would have to have at least 4 council members to vote in favor of this for it to move forward and become ordinance and for those changes to be made. And then these are the maps that I'm sure you are familiar with that identify the area that we have been discussing. I won't dwell on those long. Just a reminder, again, in terms of hierarchy, comprehensive plan is the highest governing document of the city. That is followed by the land development codes, such as the zoning map. And then the lowest level of items are things such as individual parcel designations for permits, variances, and things of that nature. This is the state statute that says that localities must have conformity between their future land use or comprehensive plan and lower level items, and that if there is any inconsistency, the comprehensive plan is the governing document. Again, this reiterates some of those other development orders. And again, it states case law that determines that the comprehensive plan dictates what happens on those lands. And the main thing to bring to our attention here is that even if we do not change the zoning tonight with this ordinance, we still would not be able to issue any development permits on any properties within this area, because the comprehensive plan says that it is not allowed. So we can't issue it. This ordinance would only be making the two documents compatible, but as they stand, and as you can see from the graph here, the special preservation zoning district does not allow any density in terms of structures. There are a very few limited uses that are allowed in special preservation districts, but none that involve any vertical structures. And you can see the floor area ratios there. So again, I reiterate, even if this ordinance does not pass tonight, we cannot issue permits for construction on these lands. It is simply to make the two documents compatible and remove any confusion that citizens or developers may have as to what can be done there, since currently the two documents do not line up. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council people?
Madam Chair?
Mr. Lawson. Mr. Lawson.
Just had a question. Yes, Mr. Sermons, a question. You said that there are limited structures. Can you give us an idea of what these structures are that are allowed under special preservation?
There are no structures that are allowed. There are some limited uses that are allowed, and generally those are related to things that would preserve or be compatible with the natural environment there that wouldn't disrupt things like mangroves and wetlands, but no structures are allowed based on our comprehensive plan.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Sermons.
Any other? Oh, good evening, Mr. Baumann. Nice to see you. Mr. McCoy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Sermons, so conformity, what does that mean?
It means that once the city adopts a comprehensive plan, that any lesser governing ordinances of the city must be in consistency with those. They can't be opposing each other. So our zoning map cannot be in conflict with our comprehensive plan. If there's a conflict, we have to fall on the comprehensive plan in terms of issuing any development orders or permits. And if we issue something that is not consistent with our comprehensive plan, then the state considers that an invalid permit. But I would defer to Mr. Baumann on those legal issues related to those, but that is how it works.
Okay, well, I'm not interested in speaking to Mr. Baumann because I gave him a call, but he didn't call me back, but he made it a point to call the attorney and let the attorney know I called him. So I'm not interested in speaking to him. I want to talk to you, sir. I'm not a land use planner, so I just wanted to make sure I understood what conformity means. So my other question is, why specifically in one of the sections of use regulations does it refer to private residential fishing? What does that mean? I don't know. You know, quite honestly, it's almost like I'm sitting here trying to think in my head of what that really means. You don't have to permit somebody to do something that they normally enjoy on their own private property. So I'm confused as to why we need to delineate it as private residential fishing or viewing platforms and docks for non-motorized boats may be permitted subject to the following regulations. I mean, you don't have to make a law locally to tell someone you can't trespass. It's already implied and understood. So what's the impetus behind that, Mr. Sermons?
I am not looking at the exact portion of the code that you're referring to right now. If to speak to it, I would say that if someone owned that property and they wanted to have some type of activity or even a business related to that, that didn't require them to erect a structure or disrupt those wetlands or environmentally sensitive areas, that they are permitted for that use on that property that has that designation.
So you don't know this? You're the Development Services Director and you're presenting us with an ordinance. Are you not familiar with what this means?
I am not familiar with everything in our codes related to land development, no.
This is going to be proposed, Mr. Sermons. I'm sure you've had an opportunity to review it.
Yes, and I think your question is, why are there certain permitted uses in our future land use designation for this area?
No, I'm specifically asking, why do we outline and delineate specifically private residential fishing? If you're on your private property, you can pretty much do what you want, you know, obviously within some limitations, but specifically I'm having issue with private residential.
I can't speak to exactly why that particular use was called out, but I can say that it makes it clear that there are some uses that are allowed on this property, even though it does have that designation of protected status.
And I think you just answered my question, Mr. Sermons. I never heard of a private residential fishing as being a use that's permitted in any zoning. So, you know, I would, you know, because I mean, obviously you can say private residential fishing, you can say recreational fishing. I mean, but why specifically private residential?
I wasn't there when this was written, so I cannot speculate as to why that was exactly called out.
So you don't understand it?
I think it's clear what's allowed there, but I can't say as to why it was written there.
Okay. All right. Am I still recognized?
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. I just was curious because that doesn't seem to make sense. My other question regarding the use regulation is docks. Exactly what was the impetus behind regulating the distance of docks?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
This section also speaks to how far and the extent that you can build a dock. What was the reasoning or impetus behind that?
I can't say at the moment.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. I yield back and reserve my time for a follow-up question.
Thank you. Mr. Evans, and then I have a question of Mr. Baumann. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I think with regards to the use or the ability to effectively fish on private property speaks to that it is special preservation and that there is certain limited uses for those that effectively own the parcel, but it is not something that you can have a commercial fishing pier or you can allow for the public to, you know, have unfeathered access to for the purposes that I think that they still wanted to allow for limited uses, but not to allow for commercial type operation or activity. So I think that is why it didn't strip the property away, the rights away in entirety, but it still gave some recreational uses that can be benefited from those that own the property.
So let me respond. Mr. Evans, please don't confuse use with what's allowable, because that's two separate things. A use is something that's specifically designated under land use regulations. Allowed is something that a person just can do, has the ability to do. But I'm speaking of particularly why that was called out in that fashion.
Because I think it wanted to provide clarity to be specific with regards to what could occur in the special preservation area. That's why I think it was so specific with regards to the language versus something that's just broad based.
So why not just include fishing?
that's for those that constructed the document to effectively be able to speak to that.
Thank you.
know,
And that's
but
why
I
I
think-
want to offer an amendment to remove private and just put fishing. So I reserve that later, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Shall we move to public comment? Are you ready, Ms. Anthony, Madam Clerk?
Madam Chair, members of the board, I do have some public comments. All public comments have not been printed.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
To move ahead with what I do have, I'm ready to do that.
Okay. Mr. Lawson?
thank you. I'm sorry, I did have a question. I believe this will be Mr. Sermons. Are there any other areas in the lagoon that has like a high density seagrass that needs to be considered in the special preservation?
Are there any areas of high density seagrass in the special preservation area?
Yes, any other areas in the lagoon?
Any areas outside of the parcels that we are trying to designate as a special preservation? Are there high density seagrasses outside of that space?
Yes.
There are databases and resources out there to that look into the existence of those. The study that the city had done was related to the parcels that are subject to this ordinance. But based on the research that was gone through and some of the maps that were provided from the consultant, that yes, there are other areas in the lagoon. All of them are not in the city's jurisdiction. But the lagoon has a lot of natural resources that have been identified.
So, and that's, I guess, my concern. It appears we're just focusing on this particular property, this set of parcels. But if the intent is to truly protect our marine life, our fish, our turtles, then we need to encompass the entire lagoon. Because from my conversations this week with a lot of residents, high density seagrass is truly the epitome of the start of life. So if we're not going to be addressing the entire lagoon with all the high density seagrass, why are we just focusing on this one parcel?
If I could respond.
Madam Chair, I would like to ask for Mr. Sermons, our Development Services Director, to
Because I'm
respond.
a member of the Lake Worth Lagoon Habitat Working Group. And we
I appreciate your credentials, Dr. Botel. I appreciate your credentials, but I'm asking Mr. Sermons, our Development Services
Go ahead, Mr.
Director,
Sermons.
to respond. So thank you for your credentials, but please can we have staff respond who actually wrote this?
So
No, he
in
didn't
the-
write it. The comprehensive plan was written in the late 80s. Mr. Sermons did not write the comprehensive plan. Let's be clear about that. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Sermons.
So at the time this area was designated for special preservation, which was in the 90s and late 80s for the whole plan when it was developed. This was the area that was identified by staff and all parties present in developing the comprehensive plan and updating it at that time. And this was the area they designated to protect existing environmental resources. It's not to say that they're the only environmental resources there, but these were a significant area of submerged parcels that exist in that area. For the parcels that are within the city limits, there are not significant submerged lands that contains these types of environmental features. But again, this is what our comprehensive plan says today, and the state statute requires us to make sure all of those lower documents are consistent. So if council is looking to expand areas with this future land use designation, that could be a future step after we take care of the current issue that is before us, which again brings up the fact that there is inconsistency, and we do need to make sure that all of our documents say the same thing and tell the same story of the city's ordinances and priorities.
So my biggest concern for my residents was, yes, the comprehensive plan is now matching, but we also have to protect our lagoon. And this is just bringing this up to snuff. And we have to essentially focus on all of the high density seagrass in the lagoon and make sure that we put the preservations in order. So I think we need to really extend this focus and not just focus on just bits and pieces. Again, this reverts back to the comprehensive plan that I've been addressing, that we need to address the entire comprehensive plan as a whole. This needs to be completely revamped. So these are some of the concerns, and these are the constant concerns, because once we put this enacted this moratorium, we've requested workshops, we've requested conversations, but it didn't come to the board until long after the moratorium was put in place. So I just believe that we're pushing this through, and it's difficult for me to support this.
Okay.
And
Thank
so
you, Mr. Simmons.
definitely add to my list of things to update in the comprehensive plan to make sure
Yes.
we're looking at any other submerged parcels. Because again, we can't zone, the water, but if there are parcels that have submerged lands that contain these types of environmental resources, we can make sure we take a look at them at the next comprehensive plan update to make sure we are protecting all the lands that we can. But
Please.
that doesn't change that we do have this nonconformity right now that we do need to address.
Not questioning that. I'm questioning the fact that we're on the discussion and this is encompassed in it. So we need to look at it as holistically. What are the issues that we have as a city? So this one bit and piece that we're addressing right now, I think that's been the problem. We continue to piecemeal things as opposed to looking at it holistically.
So, Mr. Lawson, you're voting no because it doesn't go far enough?
Madam Chair, I didn't state what my vote was, so
Oh, I'm
please
sorry,
stop putting words in my mouth.
Oh, I didn't. You voted no last time, so I'm just asking. You
Correct.
voted
So
no.
you actually just said that I'm voting no, meaning that I'm going to vote no. So, Madam Chair, please, if we can continue with the conversation.
We can continue, but my point
I
on this,
appreciate it.
my position on this is that we have to do this vote now to make the zoning in compliance with the comprehensive plan. And then at some future date, we can, if we wish to do so, amend the comprehensive plan to be more comprehensive. At the present time, the area in question, the area along Singer Island, is the most densely populated area with seagrass. It is the most precious area of the entire Lake Worth Lagoon. I know this because I do have some credentials, Mr. Lawson. I belong to the Lake Worth Lagoon Habitat Working Group, and we just had a meeting about this yesterday. And so it is so important for us to do this now, not only because we're doing what the state is requiring us to do, which is to bring our zoning into compliance with the comprehensive plan, but to get this thing going. And then if you like, in the future, we can expand it to include more of the lagoon. That would be very appropriate, I think. Anyone else have any questions, or can we move to public comment? Seeing none, we'll start with public comment. Then, Madam Clerk.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I will begin with the hard copies of a petition that I did receive that contains 186 signatures. The heading of the petition reads, "We the citizen of Riviera Beach, listed below, petition our city council to pass ordinance number 4147, establishing a special preservation district on Singer Island. This ordinance is necessary to make our zoning comply with the city's comprehensive plan as required by state statutes. Section 163.3202, parens 1, land development regulations, require that the city's future land use map and zoning map are consistent and compatible. The ordinance will protect the island's Lake Worth Lagoon area, which belongs to everyone in Riviera Beach, by prohibiting development that will damage the fragile ecosystem in our environment." That was the heading of the petition that was submitted. This public comment comes from John Sheen. I cannot make out the handwriting for the last name. The address is 5196 North Ocean Drive, Riviera Beach. Riviera Beach City Council, Legal Department, Development Services Department. Dear sir, I have no computer, so don't submit by email. Therefore, I write to ask, how do you resolve this with Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution pertaining to a quote unquote taking? Sorry for a hand tremor. I can't make out this word. Something by hand for 50 years. It was zone single, and some other words I can't make out, and it goes on to state now it can't be used at all. Sincerely, John and John lives at 5196 North Ocean Drive.
Schillenberg.
The next public comment comes from Matthew, I'm going to mess up his name, Kiwatoski, email address matkwiat@gmail.com. To the city council, the ordinance is absolutely non-controversial, except of course to the greedy developers with dollar signs in their names, in their eyes, in parentheses. It should have been taken care of months ago, years actually. This ordinance, in fact, is a simple housekeeping chore to do what the city failed to do when it should have 10 years ago. To do what state statute demands you do, bring our zoning up to date to reflect what's in our master plan. The state of Florida can fine Riviera Beach for not passing this ordinance. Yet here we are, bumbling our way through this simple process instead of merely correcting an oversight on the part of past city councils and past city managers. There are 2 votes against this ordinance on its first reading. One council member gave no reason for her vote, nor did she ask any questions or express any concerns. So I can only assume that her vote was a courtesy to her fellow council member who asked for more time to gather more information. The second council member who voted no said he was new to the council and he needed more time to get more information to make a decision. He also said he was trying to save the city from a potential lawsuit by the developers. So this second reading was delayed. But did Councilman Lawson use that delay to bring himself up to speed on this issue, to gather this information that the city already had and has had for years? No, he did not. He asked for a special workshop to educate himself, despite the fact that 2 other newly elected council members had not found it necessary to call for a workshop to educate themselves on this information, which was readily available in city departments and could have been researched by his legislative aide, whose job it is to do that kind of research. But the workshop was held.
Excuse me, Madam Clerk, we don't have a quorum present. Could we please, thank you. Go ahead.
But the workshop was held and the information was presented. The city's outside legal counsel also addressed the councilman's concern about lawsuits by pointing out that the city could be sued either way the vote went. The developers are not the only ones who can sue. The thousands of citizens affected by this ordinance can sue too if it is passed. Madam Chair, members of the board, that concludes the 3 minutes for that public comment. Anyone desiring a copy of this complete public comment may request it from the office of the city clerk. The next public comment comes from Karen Gleason. Email address kgleason@karengleason.com. Councilman, the time has come for the second vote on Ordinance 4147. The council has had the benefit of all the studies, papers, and surveys from experts as to the importance of aligning the Code of Ordinances to the comprehensive plan. Lawyer Bauman, outside counsel for the city, has schooled you on the state statute requiring the alignment of the ordinance to the comprehensive plan. He has warned you of the consequences of failing to do so. A listing of policies from the comprehensive plan repeatedly states the city should protect submerged land on Senior Island for the purpose of preservation or environmental enhancement. It also mandates protecting endangered and threatened species, of which we have many. It also calls out the protection of mangrove, seagrasses, and wetlands, which describes the submerged land perfectly, as it has wetlands running the entire length, the largest area of continuous high-density seagrass in Palm Beach County, and has both mangrove forests and fringe mangroves. It seems whoever wrote the Riviera Beach Comprehensive Plan went to great lengths to protect and accurately define this pristine area. If you are in favor of passing this ordinance, you are affirming your commitment to preserving and protecting one of the city's most important and beautiful assets, to protecting endangered and threatened species, to protecting mangroves, seagrasses, and wetlands, to protecting the coastal habitat of birds and wildlife, that live in the mangrove forest and along the mangrove fringe, to protecting the right of every citizen to access the fishing and recreational opportunities that this area provides. What possible reason could any council member give for not passing this ordinance? A yes vote shows you are doing what the state law requires and the city's comprehensive plan requires. A yes vote shows you are protecting Riviera Beach's invaluable and precious environment. What does a no vote show? It shows that you put Mr. Logan's financial interests above those of your own citizens and above the natural resources that belong to all our citizens. A no vote would raise serious questions as to your motives. Please do the right thing and vote yes. Protect Riviera Beach for now and for future generations. Thank you, Karen Gleason, 1211 Pine Point Road. And she also indicated, clerk, please attach the following list to my comment. Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, Ms. Gleason did provide an attachment. However, the 3 minutes for this comment has concluded. A complete copy can be provided upon request. Our next public comment comes from Matt Lynch, computer service at att.net. This is specifically for council members Kashamba Miller Anderson and Douglas Lawson. Either you are misunderstanding the ordinance or you are in the pocket of the developers. The ordinance is administrative housekeeping, as stated by Attorney Bauman. It's not about whether you think the submerged areas are ecologically important. That was already proven, and that's why in 1989 it was designated special preservation in the comp plan. The city's comprehensive plan states to match the zoning by 2010, so it's long overdue. So the comprehensive plan is directly telling you to approve this housekeeping ordinance. We will get fined by the state if you don't approve, as Attorney Bauman pointed out. With record-breaking public comment, the overwhelming, almost unanimous majority urging the council members to approve this ordinance, as well as the attorney and comp plan that states to approve. Can you blame the citizens, turtle, diving, wildlife, and manatee organizations for wanting an ethics investigation? Can you blame us for wanting to protest, recall you? Could you blame us for wanting to separate from Riviera Beach as if we can't get this simple housekeeping ordinance done? How can we get anything passed? Councilman Lawson promised everyone face to face during a block party on Pine Point that if we vote for him, he would do everything to protect the submerged area. Let's see if he is a man of his word or an excuse maker. If this simple housekeeping ordinance is not passed, it will create deep further division instead of uniting. Matt Lynch, 1111 Pine Point Road, Riviera Beach. Our next public comment comes from Olindo Prelli. Email address op31041@yahoo.com. Dear sir, today, those who are interested in developing the lagoon have defaced the area and value of Singer Island. A dock with a large container befits the location of an industrial park. Outstanding violations on their property are the factual track records of these owners. When have they demonstrated a positive attribute in appearance or value to our community? Singer Island continues to become overpopulated with condos and traffic, and additional development in the lagoon will overburden our environment. There is no land to add a second or third traffic lane. Please consider a no vote to allow development in the lagoon. Respectfully, Olindo Prelli, MD, President of Seawind. Our next public comment comes from Jim King. Email address jasrkane@gmail.com. Council members, please vote to enact the special preservation land use designation for the lands north of Pine Point Road and west of North Ocean Drive. Your affirmative vote is fully consistent with Florida and federal law. Further, it protects the fragile ecosystems that are present and is in the best interest of an overwhelming majority of Singer Island taxpayers. Respectfully submitted, Jim King, 5150 North Ocean Drive, Unit 2003. Our next public comment comes from Phil Brown, phil.brown54@aol.com. Council, I want to ask why Riviera Beach has not held Fane Lozman in contempt for doing stuff to his property on the lagoon without permits from the city. First and foremost, he is ruining our environment by illegally cutting mangroves and illegally dumping sand. But aside from that, he has created a real eyesore. Anyone who lives near or drives past his property and Dan Taylor's property can see what junkyards they have created along the road. Their properties have old chairs scattered around and shipping containers and juvenile signs and flags and other junk. In addition to polluting the waters, he is polluting the land visually. This is a beautiful stretch of Singer Island that attracts tourists who drive past looking at the unspoiled, peaceful, and green scenery until you come upon these two parcels of junky land, like stars in the landscape. For the life of me, I don't know why Riviera Beach has let him get away with this. You cite him and he thumbs his nose at you. You issue stop work orders because he doesn't have permits and he tears up the notices and has the work done anyway. He laughs in your face and ignores your laws, and yet you don't do what you should do and just make him restore the land to what it was before he ruined it. It's pretty obvious that Lozman is being as obnoxious as he can be to try to force Riviera Beach into buying his land for millions of dollars he insists it's worth. What a dreamer. He had drawings done of his supposed development, which he falsely claims he can sell for big bucks, but the truth is he's got a little spit of land he only paid $24,000 for and thinks he can sucker you into paying him millions for if he just harasses everyone long enough. Madam Chair, members of the board, the complete copy of Mr. Brown's public comment can be retrieved from the office of the city clerk. Our next public comment comes from Bosch K at gtlaw.com. Dear clerk, please read my attached letter into the record of the city council meeting tonight relative to item number 31, starting with the phrase, dear members of the city council and city attorney. As potentially directly affected parties, my clients ask that the entire text of the attached letter be read into the record. Otherwise, the city will be depriving my clients of procedural due process, especially in light of the public participation related difficulties resulting from COVID-19. Sincerely, Carrie Barge. Madam Chair, members of the board, I need to know if I am permitted to read this letter in its entirety into the record as requested.
I think you can read it for 3 minutes, including what you just read. Yes, the attorney says yes.
Dear members of the City Council and City Attorney, I am writing on behalf of Halo Development LLC, Fane Lozman and Renegade Trust 2, the owners of real property located within the geographic area of the proposed Special Preservation Zoning District, Ordinance number 4122, or Ordinance in parentheses, and more particularly described in Exhibit A of this letter. As you have been apprised previously by letter, together Halo, Fane Lozman, and Renegade Trust 2, collectively owners in parentheses, own approximately 51 acres of land, which accounts for 20% or more of the area of the lots included in such proposed change to the Special Preservation Zoning District in brackets, City of Riviera Beach Code, Section 31-5, 2018, in parentheses. By letter dated June 17, 2020, the owners notified the City Council of the extent of their ownership and the fact that owners opposed the ordinance. The city clerk read the owner's letter of objection into the record at the first reading of the Special Preservation District Ordinance on July 8, 2020. The City Council considered and voted on the proposed Special Preservation District Ordinance at the public hearing on July 8, 2020. 2 of the 5 City Council members voted against the proposed ordinance, which means that the ordinance failed to garner the favorable vote of 3/4, 75% in brackets of the City Council required by Section 31-5 of the City Code. At the next City Council meeting, Neither of the two dissenting council members asked for a reconsideration of their vote, and the time frame for doing so has now closed. Because the Special Preservation District ordinance failed on first reading, any further steps to analyze, debate, or to vote on this ordinance on a second reading are without legal effect. See Coleman versus City of Key West, 807 SO 2D 8485, in parentheses, Florida 3D DCA 2001. The courts have consistently held that ordinances which fall within the ambit of section 166.041, parent 3, Florida statutes 1997, in parentheses, must be strictly enacted pursuant to the statute's notice provisions, or they are null and void. A complete copy of this public comment may be obtained from the office of the city clerk. Our next public comment comes from Mary Beth Coffer, marybeth.coffer@gmail.com. Mary Beth Coffer, 2640 Lakeshore Drive. I fully support the adoption of Ordinance 4147. It is essential that the Code of Ordinances be consistent with the comprehensive plan to avoid confusion, but the effort should not stop here. Similar reviews and revisions should be conducted, particularly in cases where codes can be waived or greatly eliminated because of a site location with the CRA's downtown development districts. I think we would all agree our Riviera Beach downtown is not a typical downtown with on-street parking and a walkable atmosphere. For that reason, I would look at parking issues as they relate to properties along Blue Heron, the CRA-owned building at Blue Heron and Broadway, and the planned condos adjacent to the old Save-A-Lot and in other locations where CRA is trumping the code. Mary Beth Coffer. Our next public comment comes from SP500TRDA@yahoo.com. The City Council has been bamboozled by Chairperson Botel, Councilpersons Lanier and McCoy, City Attorney Don Wynn, and City Manager Jonathan Evans, that a rezoning ordinance can be voted on at a second reading after it has failed the first time around. It is an illegal abuse of power and is a desperate attempt by Botel to pander to her white cronies on Singer Island to stop the legal development of privately owned properties on Singer Island. Rest assured that myself and the other owners of properties on the northwest side of Singer Island are not taking this lightly. A federal section 1983 action has begun, where Botel, Lanier, McCoy, Gagnon, Jonathan Evans, and others have been named as individual defendants in a federal case for their illegal behavior in targeting owners of these private properties. Furthermore, a federal taking action will be fired that will needlessly cost the city's residents hundreds of millions of dollars. Fane Lowson. Madam Chair, members of the board, this email comes from Stephanie Crump. Email address for bentleycrump@gmail.com. I have read the petition to pass ordinance number 4147 and wish to add my name to the list of citizens urging its passage. Please ask the city clerk to read my name into the record as supporting the establishment of the Special Preservation District. Stephanie Crump, 2700 North Ocean Drive, Riviera Beach, Florida. The next comment comes from Alfred at atlastravelweb.com. I have read the petition to pass ordinance number 4147 and wish to add my name to the list of citizens urging its passage. Please ask the city clerk to read my name into the record as supporting the establishment of the Special Preservation District. Alfred F. Lobo, 4100 North Ocean Drive, WT 1001, Singer Island. Sarah Dunham, email address sarah.dunham@comcast.net. I have read the petition to pass ordinance number 4147 and wish to add my name to the list of citizens or urging its passage. Please ask the city clerk to read my name into the record as supporting the establishment of the Special Preservation District. Sarah Dunham, 5510 North Ocean Drive, Water Glades, Building 307B, Singer Island. John Boyle, jboyle246@gmail.com. I have read the petition to pass ordinance number 4147 and wish to add my name to the list of citizens urging its passage. Please ask the city clerk to read my name into the record as supporting the establishment of the Special Preservation District. Sincerely, Dr. John Boyle, 3800 North Ocean Drive, apartment 1950, Riviera Beach, Florida. Nita Dry, email address nitadry1@aol.com. I have read the petition to pass ordinance number 4147 and wish to add my name to the list of citizens urging its passage. Please ask the city clerk to read my name into the record as supporting the establishment of the Special Preservation District. Todd Drive, 1060 Coral Way, Riviera Beach, Florida. Isabel Philippone, email address chappellebell1@gmail.com. I have read the petition to pass ordinance number 147 and wish to add my name to the list of citizens urging its passage. Please ask the city clerk to read my name into the record as supporting the establishment of the Special Preservation District. Madam Chair, members of the board, the time is now 9:57. What's the pleasure of the board?
Does someone want to make a motion to extend the meeting to finish this item? Ms. Lanier or Mr. McCoy, are you?
So moved.
Thank you. Does someone want to second that motion? I'll pass the gavel and second the motion. Mr. Lawson, you have the gavel until this item is finished. So I've seconded, and does anybody want to make a comment about this, or should we just go to the vote?
Madam Chair, Mr. Lawson is now the chairperson, so he has to.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, old habits.
Mr. Lawson, your mic is muted.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Clerk. If we have no comments from the board, Madam Clerk.
Councilperson McCoy. Councilperson Miller Anderson.
No.
Councilperson Lanier.
Yes.
Councilperson Botel.
Yes.
Chair Lawson.
No.
That motion fails with Councilperson McCoy out. You're muted, Ms. Nguyen. Members of the board, the motion fails with Councilperson McCoy out. We have a 2-2
Thank you,
vote.
Ms. Anthony. Thank you, Ms. Anthony.
I'll take the gavel back since
Understood.
that motion is finished with. So, Ms. Nguyen, does it, because we're not finishing reading all the public comments, does this mean that we have to postpone this item? I don't think that we can call for a vote. Well, we could postpone. No, we have to read the public comments, don't we?
You have to have the public comment, yes.
And the time is now 9:59.
Okay. So, Mr. Evans, what do you recommend?
I think we would have to, I'd have to defer to the attorney, but I think we have to continue this item to conclude the comments that have been submitted related to this particular topic.
And you would have to continue it to a time certain, which would be your next council meeting, unless you decided to have a special council meeting.
Well, we have to resolve this issue quickly. I mean, when can we have another council meeting?
Madam Chair, members of the board, you will not be able to have another council meeting until a special city council meeting until Friday. Because I will have to notice it tomorrow, once it's called by either two of you or by the mayor. And that's if I get that information.
Well, Friday is the 18th. We have a community briefing at 6:30, but that shouldn't pose too much of a problem. It's not one that has to be a council meeting, right?
Right.
Madam Chair, members of the board, the time is now 10 o'clock.
Well, we have to extend the meeting until we figure out what to do. Would someone like to make a motion to extend the meeting until we figure out how to move forward?
So moved.
Thank you. Can someone second until we figure out how to move forward? I'll pass the gavel in second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Patel. Any discussion from the council? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Miller Anderson,
No.
Councilperson Lanier,
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy, Councilperson Botel,
Yes.
Chair Lawson.
No.
That motion fails for Councilperson McCoy out. Chair members of the board, the time that's established is 10 o'clock and it's now 10:01.
With that, Ms. Anthony, the meeting's adjourned.
I took the gavel back, Mr. Lawson. Mr. Evans, we will work to get this meeting scheduled for Friday. Would you work with staff to get that done, please? I will ask the mayor to put something together for the clerk. Ms. Nguyen, would you work with City Manager Evans to get that done?
Of course.
This meeting is adjourned.